At my son's wedding, his bride walked up to me and whispered, "You're not welcome here." I stood there, stunned. I'd paid for this entire wedding. Before I tell you everything, let me just say, this isn't easy to share. But if you've ever given your heart to someone and felt invisible in return, this story might mean something to you. If it does, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Linda. I'm a single mom. My son, Ethan, is 27 now. I raised him alone after my husband died when Ethan was just 9 years old. Those years weren't easy. I worked double shifts, skipped vacations, and wore the same winter coat for 5 years just so Ethan could go to college. And when he wanted to become a dentist, I sold my jewelry to help cover what his scholarship didn't. I never once complained. Everything I did out of love. Ethan was my whole world. A couple years ago, he brought home a girl named Kara. She was beautiful and polite, but something about her felt cold, like she was always watching people, judging them quietly. Still, Ethan looked happy. I tried my best to make her feel welcome. Fast forward to the wedding day. I'd paid for almost everything, the venue, the food, even her dress. I told myself it was all worth it to see my son happy. But that morning, Kara barely looked at me. No hug, no smile. Just a nod, like I was some guest she didn't recognize. Then, just before the ceremony, Kara walked over to me. She leaned in so no one else could hear and said, "You're not welcome here. You embarrass us. Please leave." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought maybe I'd misheard her. But she just smiled, cold as ever, and walked away. I looked around for Ethan. He was talking to one of Kara's cousins, laughing. I waited, hoping he'd come over, say something, tell me it was all a misunderstanding. But he didn't. He looked right at me and then turned away. So I left. I walked out of the wedding I had paid for, got in my car, and drove away with my heart shattered into pieces. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there, gripping the wheel, asking myself how it had come to this. I raised that boy. I gave him everything. And on the most important day of his life, he let his new wife treat me like I didn't matter at all. I came home in tears that night, still in the dress I had picked so carefully for my son's big day. I didn't even take off my shoes. I walked straight to the kitchen table, sat down, and stared at the wall. My hands were shaking. My chest ached. I couldn't stop asking myself, where did I go wrong? How did I raise a son who would let this happen? I remembered when Ethan was little. He used to run to me the second he got off the school bus, his backpack bouncing behind him. He'd show me crayon drawings and talk a mile a minute about his day. Every night, we'd read a book together before bed. He always said, "You're the best, Mom." I believed it. Back then, it was just the two of us. We weren't rich, but we had each other. I worked long hours as a receptionist at a dental office, but I never missed his school plays or soccer game. He used to beg me to sit in the front row. He was proud of me once. Then Kara came into his life. Her family had money, real money. Her father owned several businesses. Her mother wore pearls to brunch. From the beginning, they made it clear I wasn't good enough. They never said it outright, but the looks, the tone, the way they talked about standards, I could feel it. I was just a single mom with an old car and no college degree. Still, I gave everything to make the wedding perfect. I paid for 85% of it. The venue, the catering, the dress, the flowers, the cake. Nearly every detail had my name on the invoice. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to be part of my son's joy. I wanted to be close to him again. But now, as I sat in the silence of my kitchen, I realized something. They didn't want me there. Not just at the wedding, but in Ethan's life. Kara didn't just ask me to leave the wedding. She was trying to erase me. And Ethan let her. That's when it hit me. No more. No more payments. No more sacrifices. No more pretending. I grabbed my phone and started pulling out the wedding contracts. The venue, the florist, the caterer, all in my name. They wanted me gone. Fine. Let's see how they handle everything without me. The morning after the wedding, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat down with my laptop, pulled out a notebook, and made a list. Venue, caterer, photographer, florist, DJ, cake, all of it under my name. Every contract, every deposit, every final payment that hadn't gone through yet, I had control of it. I started making calls. First, the venue. "Hi, this is Linda Owens. I need to cancel the final payment for the Morgan Kent wedding. The event has already started? Then I need you to stop serving and shut down the bar." "Yes, I understand the cancellation clause. Send me the invoice." Next, the caterer. "Put everything on hold. Pack up. No more food. I'll cover what's already been served. Nothing more." One by one, I called each vendor. No emotion. Just business. I explained that payments were stopping, effective immediately. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The contracts were mine. They had no choice but to follow my instructions. It took about an hour before the chaos started. Later, I heard from someone who was there. Guests were eating dinner when the music stopped mid-song. The DJ quietly packed his equipment. Waiters began clearing half-filled plates. apologizing to confused guests. The florist's crew came back and started pulling down centerpiece. Kara's mother reportedly had a meltdown when she saw the bartender walk out. People whispered, eyes shifting toward Kara's family. Some guests left early, unsure if the reception was over. Others stayed just to watch the disaster unfold. Then Ethan found me. He showed up at my door that evening, face flushed with anger, tuxedo jacket wrinkled in his hand. "What the hell did you do?" he snapped. I stood calmly in the doorway. "I stopped paying." "You embarrassed us," he shouted. "In front of everyone. You let her throw me out of your wedding," I said, my voice steady. "Do you think I was going to just smile and sit at home while she humiliated me?" "She didn't mean it like that," he started. "She told me I wasn't welcome. And you stood there. You let her." He looked away then. Couldn't even meet my eyes. "I've canceled the payments," I said. "No more wedding costs. No more apartment down payment. No car. No help. You're both on your own now." He opened his mouth to argue but said nothing. For the first time in years, I felt like I'd finally taken back some power. Not to punish him, but to protect myself. I closed the door gently behind him. Weeks passed and Ethan never called. Every day I checked my phone, half hoping there'd be a message, even a single word. But there was nothing. The silence wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, and some days, it felt hard to breathe. I kept replaying it all in my mind. The years I spent working overtime, so Ethan could go to the best schools. The nights I stayed up sewing buttons back on his shirts before big interviews. The time I skipped a job promotion so I wouldn't miss his college graduation. I gave him everything. And now, I didn't even get a thank you. Just silence. One afternoon, I sat down to write him a letter. I poured my heart into it, 3 pages, front and back. I told him how much I missed him, how hurt I was, how I still loved him no matter what. But when I finished, I just stared at the paper. The words felt desperate, like I was begging for crumbs. I ripped the pages in half and dropped them in the trash. I knew I couldn't stay stuck in that place, so I picked up my gardening gloves from the shed and started digging up the backyard. I planted herbs, tomatoes, even a small lemon tree. Each time my hands pressed into the dirt, I felt a little lighter. I started going to therapy too. At first I said I just needed to talk, but week by week, I began to heal. The evenings became my favorite time. I'd make a cup of tea, light a candle, and sit on the porch with a book or just my thoughts. I missed Ethan, yes, but I was learning how to be okay without him. Of course, Kara's parents couldn't leave things alone. A lawyer sent me a notice, claiming I had intentionally disrupted the wedding and caused financial and emotional harm. They wanted damages for the embarrassment and loss of service. I passed it to my attorney, who laughed and said, "They don't have a case." They didn't. The contracts were all in my name. I had every right to cancel. The lawsuit went nowhere. Even after that, there was still no word from Ethan. But for once, I wasn't waiting by the phone. I had my garden, my peace, and something I hadn't had in a long time, my dignity. It had been nearly 4 months since I'd seen or heard from him. The garden was in full bloom. My evenings were quiet, calm, sometimes too calm. The pain had settled into something dull, something manageable. I was learning how to live around the emptiness. Then, one rainy evening, there was a knock at the door. I opened it slowly. Ethan stood there. He looked like a ghost of himself. His face was pale and drawn, cheekbones sharp, eyes sunken. His clothes were wrinkled and damp, hair unwashed. He was thinner, much thinner, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom," he whispered, "can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. He shuffled in, carrying a torn backpack and nothing else. He sat at the kitchen table while I made tea. I didn't ask questions, not yet. We sat in silence, the rain tapping softly on the windows. I slid the mug across to him. His hands shook as he held it. "I lost everything," he said finally. I didn't speak. I waited. Kara, she left," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "After the wedding, things got bad fast. She found out I didn't have access to more money. No backup account. No trust fund. Nothing." He took a shaky breath. "She started getting cold. Distant. Then I came home one day and she was gone. Took everything in the apartment. Even the TV. My name wasn't on the lease. I had nowhere to go." I nodded slowly. Not with pity, just acknowledgement. "I lost my job too," I was so distracted I started missing shifts. "They let me go." "Where have you been staying?" I asked. "Shelter. Couch surfing. Sleeping in my car when I could." I looked at him for a long time. "You chose her over me," I said quietly. He didn't deny it. His head dropped. "I know," he whispered. "I was stupid. I thought if I said something at the wedding, she'd leave me. I was scared. I thought I'd lose everything." "And you did," I replied. He nodded again. "I deserve that." I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask him how he could let it happen. But instead, I walked over and placed a clean towel on the table. "You can sleep on the couch," I said. "Showers down the hall. Clothes in the guest room drawer might still fit." Thank you, he said, voice cracking. I didn't say anything back. He may have come home, but we weren't okay. Not yet. Ethan stayed on the couch for days, barely speaking. He cleaned up after himself, ate whatever I made, and mostly kept his head down. I didn't push. I waited. One night, after dinner, we were both sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching. The silence between us had started to feel heavier than before. Ethan finally broke it. She never liked you, he said suddenly. Kara. I turned to look at him. She thought you were holding me back. She said I'd never be my own man if I kept depending on you. I didn't say anything. I just let him speak. She used to say you were a dead weight, he continued quietly, that I needed to cut the cord, be independent, make my own decisions. But you were making your own decisions, I said softly. You just kept choosing her over me. He looked at me then, eyes filled with guilt. I thought if I didn't do what she wanted, she'd leave. And I loved her. Or I thought I did. She wanted me out of your life, I added. And you let her. Ethan swallowed hard. I know. I did. And I hated myself for it even while it was happening. But I didn't stop. I was afraid. I didn't want to lose her. So instead, you lost me, I said. He didn't try to defend himself. He just nodded. I thought I was doing what was best, he said, trying to keep my future together. I didn't realize I was tearing everything else apart until it was too late. I felt my throat tighten, but I held it in. You broke my heart, Ethan, I said. Not just that day. Long before that. Every time you ignored how she treated me. Every time you made me feel small in my own son's life. I wasn't trying to control you. I just wanted to be included. I know, he whispered. I see it now. I was so caught up in her world, I couldn't see what I was doing to you. We sat there in silence again, this time with the air heavy from things finally said. It didn't fix everything, but for the first time in a long while, I saw in him a piece of the boy I used to know, the one who once ran into my arms like nothing else in the world mattered. Ethan didn't ask for much. He kept to the couch, folded his own blankets every morning, and washed the dishes without being asked. It was strange having him there again, but not as my boy. He was quieter now, more careful with his words, like he didn't know his place anymore. But slowly, he started finding it. He helped me in the garden, pulling weeds, planting new seedling. We worked side by side without much conversation, but there was something healing in the silence. He offered to cook dinner one night. It was a mess, burnt rice and undercooked chicken, but we laughed about it. It was the first time we had laughed together in months. At my gentle suggestion, he agreed to try therapy. I gave him the number of someone I trusted, and he made the appointment himself. A week later, he asked if I'd come to a session with him. Sitting in that small room, across from each other, felt harder than I expected. I didn't cry, but I could have. He talked about his guilt, his fear, how he'd felt pulled in two directions for years. I told him about the loneliness, the silence after he left, and the shame I'd felt being pushed aside at his wedding like I didn't belong. It was uncomfortable, raw, but something shifted that day. A thread reconnected. A few weeks later, one of my old friends from the dental office called. There was an opening at a nearby clinic, entry-level, front desk work, but steady. I mentioned it to Ethan, not expecting much. He applied the same day. Got the job 2 days later. I saw a small light in his eyes again when he told me. It wasn't a big job, but it was a start. A step. He started waking up early, ironing his shirt, packing his lunch. I made coffee while he tied his shoes. It reminded me of when he was in high school, when I'd wait at the window to wave goodbye before the bus came. This time, he waved back. Then Kara called. He didn't tell me at first. I saw her name flash on his phone while we were sorting laundry. He silenced it without a word. Later that night, he came to the kitchen where I was drying dishes. She wants to meet, he said. Says she made a mistake. That she misses me. I looked at him. What do you want to do? He paused. Then, for the first time, his voice was firm. I blocked her. Just like that. No more hesitation. No more fear. He stood up for himself, for me, for both of us. And I saw it clearly then. He was trying. Really trying. And little by little, he was becoming the man I always hoped he'd be. The months passed quietly, but not without change. Ethan kept showing up. For work, for therapy, for himself. He'd come home tired but focused, sometimes talking about patients he'd met at the clinic, or how he was learning to budget and manage on his own. I listened, offered advice when asked, and gave him space when he needed it. One afternoon, I got a call from a friend who still followed the social crowd Kara's family ran. Her voice was practically buzzing. Did you hear? Kara's dad lost everything. Apparently, Kara's father had been sued by a major vendor for breach of contract. Ironically, not related to my wedding mess, but another one where he'd tried to skip out on payment. The lawsuit bled into his businesses, and before long, the family was in serious financial trouble. Properties were being sold off. Status vanished overnight. Then I heard about Kara. After leaving Ethan, she'd moved in with someone new, older, wealthy, probably another safety net. But as the truth unraveled about how she'd treated Ethan, how she'd manipulated and lied about her past, her new relationship crumbled. He left her. Publicly. I didn't smile when I heard. I didn't gloat. But I did feel something settle. A kind of balance. One evening, Ethan came home and quietly placed his phone face down on the table. "She messaged me," he said. I didn't ask what she wrote. I just looked at him. She said she was sorry, that she wants to talk. And I didn't respond. A small part of me still braced, unsure if he'd cave again. But he didn't. "I deleted it," he added. There was no anger in his voice. Just calm. Confidence. Something new in him, solid, grounded. I watched him that night as he made dinner, humming to himself, reading the recipe carefully, checking measurements like it was the most important thing in the world. No longer the boy who once needed me for everything. Not the man who pushed me away either. Someone in between. Someone rebuilding. And for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to feel proud. Not completely at ease, not completely healed, but proud. Because this time, he chose the hard path. The right one. And he was walking it. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. The kind where nothing urgent needed to be done. And the house was filled with soft light and the smell of fresh bread cooling on the counter. Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of mail. I was wiping down the counter, humming without thinking. That's when he looked up and said, "Can we talk?" I turned off the faucet and sat across from him. "I've said I'm sorry before," he began, "but I don't think I ever really said what I needed to." I didn't stop him. "I treated you like a bank, like a background character in my life. I didn't see everything you did, not really. And when Kara came around, I was so desperate to prove I could be something on my own. I let her convince me that you were in my way." His eyes glistened. He didn't look away this time. "I knew she didn't respect you, but I stayed quiet, because I was scared of losing her. I thought love meant choosing her no matter what. I didn't understand that real love doesn't ask you to turn your back on the people who raised you." I swallowed hard. My hands were clasped tightly in my lap. "I'm not asking you to forget," he said, "but I'm asking for another chance, to earn back what I broke." I sat in silence for a long moment. Then I said quietly but clearly, "You lost me once, Ethan. Don't ever let it happen again." He nodded slowly. "I won't. I promise." It didn't fix everything, not overnight, but something shifted. From that day forward, we started to build again, not from where we left off, but from where we were now. Ethan started asking me about my life, my days, my routines, my small joys. He fixed the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom without being asked. When my old car broke down, he offered to pay half for the repairs, insisting it was only fair. I let him, not because I needed the money, but because it mattered that he offered. He even started setting aside part of his paycheck each month, saying he wanted to contribute to the house expenses until he found his own place. It wasn't about money, it was about respect. One evening, we sat in the garden, watching the lemon tree swaying gently in the breeze. "I never saw it before," he said. "How strong you are. How much you gave me." "You weren't ready to see it," I replied. "But I'm glad you do now." He smiled. "I see more than that now. I see you, Mom. Not just what you gave me, who you are. And that meant everything." 1 year later, everything felt different. The house was brighter. Not because anything had changed physically, but because the heaviness that once lingered in every corner was gone. Ethan had moved into a small apartment nearby, but he came over every weekend to mow the lawn or bring me lunch. He was steady now, grounded, and he was happy. Her name was Sophie. The first time I met her, she brought me a pie she'd baked from scratch. Not store-bought, not showy, just thoughtful. She smiled warmly, asked about my garden, and listened when I spoke. But more than anything, she respected me. From day one, I could tell. She and Ethan had been dating for several months before he proposed. When he told me, there was a spark in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not just love, but peace. Like he finally understood what it meant to choose someone without losing himself in the process. A few weeks later, Ethan invited me to a small dinner at his place. Just a few close friends, Sophie and her parents. I didn't expect anything special, just a nice evening. But after dessert, he stood up, holding a glass of wine. "I want to say something," he said, looking around the room. "Especially to my mom." I looked at him, surprised. He cleared his throat. "This past year changed me. A lot. And I wouldn't have gotten through it without you. You raised me alone, gave up more than I probably even know. And even when I failed you, when I hurt you, you didn't give up on me." The room was quiet. "You're the reason I am who I am. And I just want to say thank you. Not just for what you did, but for who you are." He came over and hugged me in front of everyone. Not awkwardly, not half-hearted. Fully. Like he meant it. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Seen. Heard. Valued. As we all sat down again, I looked around at the new faces in his life, at the warmth in the room, and felt peace settle deep inside me. Betrayal had broken something in me once. but it also made room for something new, something stronger. Because sometimes betrayal opens the door to a stronger kind of love. What would you have done if you were in Linda's place? Could you walk away from the child you raised, or fight harder to hold on? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. If stories of strength, sacrifice, and second chances speak to you, make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss a moment like this.